Hello traders, in today's video we're going to be talking about sentiment and holders distribution, looking at how traders with not much Bitcoin, how they do, and traders with a ton of Bitcoin, what they do over time. Before this, my Delta Neutral course is currently on my website, and if you want to go check that out, you can click the link in the description below. With that, let's begin. Alright traders, as you can see I had to remove my webcam because it was obscuring a little bit too much of the page. But let's go tack on holders distribution and see what the smaller holders and the larger holders of Bitcoin are doing over time and what this can teach us about the future. And I will also end this video with a price prediction, so I can promise you that. So this is a lot of lines. Green is price and all of these lines are different distributions. That's just not helpful. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get rid of the majority of these just to start with just analyzing one portion of the crowd. And then we're going to go through each different portion of the crowd and talk about what they've done over time and what this really means for the current price. So this is any holders, what you're looking at for the purple and the brown. Anyone who has between 0.01 and 1 Bitcoin is included here. And this is really how they performed over time. So you can see that as price was increasing and as price was increasing here, they typically just accumulate. And then when price, seems to decrease, they just seem to just continue to accumulate. So what I'm more interested in is when they all distribute, when they all sell, what ends up happening to price. Well, a really interesting thing that I noticed before I started this video is look what happens here. This is a actually pretty good signal. So we know that there are 5.37 million wallets that hold between 0.01 and 0.1 Bitcoin, right? That number drops to 5.33 million. Now that might not seem like a lot, but to me that actually is a fair amount of it. That's a pretty large drop. We can see that the amount of people who hold that much Bitcoin just drops, and it drops right before this little pump in price here that precedes the massive pump that happens here. And what ends up happening actually is these traders, even as price is going up, these traders continue to sell. They continue to distribute their Bitcoin. And the only time where they actually get an uptick and they begin to buy is after the price had already soared. So this is just classic retail behavior. And I think that Santiment provides great sentiment for these lower tier traders or traders with just not much Bitcoin and how they perform. Now let's go look at, I'm going to go look at the 3-month. For these guys, yeah, it's accumulation over time, but it really is interesting to see whenever they sell, a large sale, typically prices continues to go up without them. As you can see here, they large sell here and prices went up without them. Large sell here, prices went up without them. It just keeps happening time and time again. And then even when we see a very large, quick accumulation, that typically to me, like right here, let me zoom in on that. Yeah, right there. We can see just so much accumulation. So many retail traders are buying this up, and then the price just dumps. So it can be a nasty market, but this is really what it's like for these lower tier guys. All right, let's go put on the next level. These are people with quite a large amount of Bitcoin. Those who have 1 to 100 Bitcoin. Well, what are they doing? Well, the first thing that I want to talk about is these kinds of traders are typically ahead of the crowd. They're typically ahead of the traders that are holding, say, a few $1,000s worth of Bitcoin. In purple, we can see those who have 10 to 100, and they are actually pretty predictive of the price of Bitcoin. They sold right before the dump. And how much? Well, we went from 140K addresses down to 139.24. Then right before the drop, we went to 138.58K. So we really went for about, what is that? A few thousand addresses are just exiting Bitcoin, selling Bitcoin, or falling below the 10. Falling below 10, so they're out of this group, and they all sell right before the price dump. I mean, that maybe they knew something, maybe they didn't. I don't know, but this seems like quite interesting behavior that definitely you don't want to ignore this kind of behavior. Then after price drops, what do? Well, they accumulate like crazy. I mean, they just keep buying and buying and buying, and then price increases. So let's look at the last month. Let's go a little bit more short term. Looking at the last month, it's been a little bit. I'd rather have you guys actually decipher this than me, because it's kind of hard to see what's going on here. We had a price pump, But then one side, the 10 to 100 actually accumulated, but then the 1 to 10 distributed right before the price drop. So actually the smaller size, the 1 to 10 were correct with selling right before the dump, and those with 10 to 100 were actually buying at pretty bad prices. So it's not like that these guys are gods who are always right. They were actually selling at a time where they probably should not have been selling, unless they were hedged, of course. Oh, where'd you go? Where'd you go? There you go. Unless they were hedged, of course. And over time I can see that. Yep, they were accumulating here. Oh, this is interesting. This is more of what I was looking for. The 1 to 10 just doesn't stop buying, but then the 10 to 100 traders just aren't really interested in buying at these prices, so price falls. One thing that I want to jump to very quickly before I do, a wrap up and then show everything and then do a prediction, is it's really interesting to see those with a ton of Bitcoin. Well, I don't think anyone has 10 million to infinity or even over 1 million Bitcoin. I don't think anyone does, but yeah, there is the 100,000 to 1 million crowd. I'm going to show you guys the last year of this kind of crowd because it's super, super interesting because these guys are actually not perfect. As you can see, let's go just identify a few spots. So as you can see, there aren't that many addresses that have 100K to 1 million coins, and I honestly don't even know if this is the best indicator to show you. But what I can say is that it's significant at least. And this number is dropping from like 4 people, or pardon me, 4 addresses to like 2 to 3, back to 2. But let's go look at where price was whenever it changed. So we can see that we have a new guy entering. We had about 3 addresses on this pump, and then Bitcoin gets to very high prices, 12K relatively. I know I never say there's such thing as high or low, but relatively high, relatively low, relatively high prices, and someone joins. Someone ends up joining the at least 100K Bitcoin club at a very bad time, right before the price drops. But then what we see is actually pretty expert whale behavior. Look what happens after this pump. The price pumps, but we go from a wallet address of 4 down to 2. And then right when we go down to 2, price just dumps. Then what happens is price really stabilizes here, but then we get this vote of confidence really when we go from 2 to 3 wallets that have over 100K. And then price pumps. But then we do see here that, I'm going to zoom in the last month to show you, this was not the greatest signal, to be honest with you guys. They ended up distributed. We went from 3 wallets to 2 wallets right here. And I'm actually pretty confident that this was one person who had sold, because look at this pattern right here. I mean, this is just to me screaming that this person was responsible for the sale, of a large amount of Bitcoin. Because look at this. Price is just kind of going up, right? It looks like an uptrend, But then we get that sharp decrease. And at the same time, we go from 3 large whales to 2 whales, right when price dumps. So this probably was just him selling off, if anything. So that's one thing that I wanted to show you guys. There's also those that are the 10K to 100K crowd. These guys aren't as crazy as they're more numerous at least than the 100K to 1 million Bitcoin crowd. This is not US dollars, guys. This is Bitcoin. So the amount of money that is a very, very, very large amount of money. These guys are kind of all over the place, I have to be honest. I did look at this before the video, and I couldn't really find much of this. So I wouldn't really be looking at this that much. I think that, if anything, this might be a little bit better. Yeah, this might be maybe a little bit better. But let's go look at really the mid tiers, which is these guys. So what ends up happening, and the last one I'm going to show you is, right here, we can see that the 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin crowd actually ends up going up, but the 1,000 to 10,000 crowd actually ends up going down. So this is kind of a mixed signal, and it happens again, where actually we get the 1K to 10K crowd going up, but then we get the 100 to 1,000 coin crowd going down. To me, this is a bit of a mixed signal. If anything, it's slightly bullish, and I'm not just saying that because price rose. I'm saying that because we actually get a very large increase from the 1K to 10K coin holders from 2039 to 2056, which shouldn't be ignored. And then we can see that over time, the correlation has been decent, I'd say. However, these guys still do tend to not really buy and sell at the best possible prices. So what I'm doing with this video isn't just showing a bunch of lines. It's also just showing you that I think that a lot of people believe that, okay, I'm going to just show everyone here. Let's just bring the whole party in. Last week, is this going to be crazy on me? Yep, that's, oh, it's fine, actually. You know, what I want to say here is that the whales are not perfect. I think a lot of people believe that those with a large amount of money are just like perfect traders, but you can really see that they're not. Yeah, they sometimes do very good plays, but a lot of the time these addresses might not even be traders or investors. It could be holding for other purposes that don't really have to do with the price of Bitcoin rising or falling. They could really care less. So there's a large amount of information to take in here, but I still do think that this does more help than hurts, and that's why I want to give my prediction for what we're looking at here. So go into the last month chart, and then let me zoom in here. Yeah. So to me, this looks bullish, and really, here is why. If you look at the orange right here is that 10K to 100K coin people. I did previously say that hasn't really historically been great, but recently it has been pretty great, and let me really tell you why. So if you look at just the orange line, you can see we get a large increase in how many are holding here now, and then price pumps, and then they sell at actually a decent price, much higher, and nice profit, or at least the addresses go down. But then the most important part happens here. Price pumps, and the orange actually goes down, and you can see that they sell off. And then recently they just kept selling, and now they just bought. So we just saw a very large increase in the 10K to 100K crowd right about here. So I'm predicting, if anything, that this is more bullish than bearish. Especially also, if I isolate to look at what the retail crowd is doing, which is typically a pretty good counter indicator. Really, anyone who has less than one Bitcoin, it doesn't really seem like they're accumulating like crazy, does it? It seems like, if anything, they're selling more. Really, the highest local values they had were around here. But after all of this price movement, it doesn't really look like they're very intent on buying a ton. So I think that there is actually still a large amount of buying potential left for Bitcoin in the next few weeks and potentially months. And to me, if I was to categorize holder distribution as anything as of June 2020, I'd say in the short term it's bullish. Short to medium term, it's bullish. However, I will say that this information can change. And let's say that I see something like the 10K to 100K crowd, goes down drastically. Then these guys start selling off like crazy too, 1K to 10K coins. Then yeah, that to me would be a little bit less bullish. But if anything, it looks like the crowd that's typically right is betting on up, and the crowd that's typically wrong is betting on down. And to me, at the end of the day, that's bullish. So with that, that's going to do it for this video, which was analyzing holders distribution, different wallet addresses and the amount of Bitcoin they hold, and really times at which they accumulate and times at which they distribute. If you want to get Santiment, you can click the link in my description below and go to the site and go check it out. I just focused on one indicator today, but there are gajillions of other indicators on this site as well. But I wanted to keep my focus on just one. With that, happy trading, and I'll see you in the next one.